Monday, July 27th, 2026. Today's world news headline summary. 1. The Korea Times. 1-1. Iran war spreads to Red Sea and Caspian. Gulf quiet as U.S. forgoes strikes. The conflict between the United States and Iran has broadened significantly over the weekend, despite a temporary pause in direct U.S. airstrikes. Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthi rebels launched unexpected attacks on Saudi Arabian oil installations along the Red Sea coast, triggering severe concerns regarding regional energy supplies and global economic stability. Concurrently, the U.S. military confirmed that its naval blockade against Iran remains in full effect to maintain strategic pressure. Complicating matters further, the Iranian government accused Ukraine of targeting one of its commercial vessels in the Caspian Sea, an allegation that introduces a new geopolitical dimension to the conflict. Experts note that while the immediate Gulf region remains relatively quiet, the widening scope of the war presents an escalating threat to international maritime security. Vocabulary. Broaden. Verb. 넓어지다, 확산되다. The local dispute has quickly broadened into a regional conflict. Temporary. Adjective. 일시적인, 임시의. The two nations agreed on a temporary ceasefire to allow aid to enter. Installation. Noun. 시설, 설비. The military targeted several key radar installations during the strike. Blockade. Noun. 봉쇄, 차단. The economic blockade caused severe shortages of medical supplies. Complicate. Verb. 복잡하게 만들다. The sudden weather changes will complicate the rescue mission. Allegation. Noun. 증거 없는 혐의, 주장. The official denied the allegation of corruption raised by the media. Dimension. Noun. 차원, 관점. The discovery adds a fascinating new dimension to the historical narrative. Maritime. Adjective. 바다이, 해양이. The strait is a crucial maritime corridor for global oil transport. 해상 봉쇄. Naval blockade. 전시나 갈등 상황에서 특정 국가의 항구나 해안으로 선박이 드나들지 못하도록 군사력을 이용해 해상 교통로를 차단하는 행위이다. 경제적 타격을 입혀 협상 테이블로 끌어내기 위한 강력한 외교 군사적 압박 수단으로 활용된다. 후티 반군, 후티 rebels. 예멘의 이슬람 시아파 무장단체로 이란의 지원을 받는 것으로 널리 알려져 있다. 중동 내 패권 경쟁에서 중요한 대리전 역할을 수행하며 종종 국제 무역로를 위협한다.
1-2. Seoul shifts from denuclearization first to peace first on NK, minister says. The South Korean government has effectively abandoned the previous administration's denuclearization first policy regarding North Korea, opting instead for a peace first strategy. The unification minister announced that Seoul is now prioritizing the immediate freeze of Pyongyang's nuclear program rather than demanding complete, verifiable, and irreversible dismantlement, CVID, up front. This strategic pivot reflects an acknowledgement of North Korea's continuing efforts to build up its nuclear arsenal. Furthermore, the government has decided to drop the specific term denuclearization of North Korea from its official lexicon. In its place, the administration has adopted the broader, more inclusive goal of establishing a nuclear-free Korean peninsula to facilitate diplomatic engagement. Vocabulary. Effectively, adverb. 사실상, 효과적으로. The new regulations effectively banned the import of certain vehicles. Abandon, verb. 포기하다, 버리다. The developers were forced to abandon the project due to a lack of funds.
Prioritize, verb. 우선순위를 매기다. The hospital must prioritize patients with severe injuries during an emergency. Dismantlement, noun. 해체, 폐기. The treaty requires the complete dismantlement of all biological weapons facilities. Upfront, adverb/adjective. 선제적으로, 미리. The contractor asked for a 20% payment upfront before starting the work. Pivot, noun/verb.
전략의 선회, 회전축. The startup executed a successful pivot to focus on enterprise software. Arsenal, noun, 무기고, 비축된 무기. The nation possesses a vast arsenal of advanced conventional weapons. Lexicon, noun, 어휘, 사전. The term has recently been added to the official diplomatic lexicon. 시사용어 해설, CVID, complete, verifiable, and irreversible dismantlement. 완전하고 검증 가능하며 불가역적인 핵 폐기를 뜻하는 국제 정치 용어이다. 핵무기를 단순히 줄이는 것이 아니라 다시는 핵을 개발할 수 없도록 원천적으로 파괴하고 이를 철저히 사찰하겠다는 미국의 전통적인 대북 협상 원칙을 의미한다. 핵 동결, nuclear freeze. 현재 보유한 핵무기를 즉각 폐기하는 것이 아니라 더 이상 추가적인 핵무기 개발이나 생산, 실험을 하지 않고 현재 상태에서 멈추게 하는 조치를 말한다.
1-3. Suspect in Berlin Pride attack shot dead by police. The suspect responsible for the deadly vehicle ramming attack at Berlin's Christopher Street Day Pride Parade has been shot dead by police. Authorities identified the attacker as a 21-year-old German citizen of Lebanese heritage, noting his extensive history of criminal offenses and radicalization within the Islamist scene. The tragic incident, which occurred in the Tiergarten Park area, resulted in multiple casualties and forced the cancellation of the remaining parade. Following the attack, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz delivered a resolute speech at a memorial service, urging citizens not to be intimidated. Lawmakers across the political spectrum are now calling for a severe crackdown on Islamic radicalism to defend the country's liberal values. Vocabulary. Suspect, noun, 용의자. The prime suspect was apprehended while attempting to board a flight. Heritage, noun, 혈통, 유산. She is proud of her rich cultural heritage and traditions. Extensive, adjective, 광범위한, 폭넓은. The candidate has extensive experience in both finance and public policy. Radicalization, noun, 급진화. The government is launching programs to prevent the radicalization of youth online. Casualty, noun, 사상자, 피해자. Emergency services reported heavy casualties following the severe earthquake. Resolute, adjective, 단호한, 확고한. The leader maintained a resolute stance against any form of terrorism. Intimidate, verb, 위협하다, 겁주다. The gang tried to intimidate the witness into changing his testimony. Spectrum, noun, spectrum, 범위. The proposal received support from across the entire political spectrum. 시사용어 해설. 차량 돌진 테러, vehicle ramming attack. 총기나 폭발물을 구하기 어려운 상황에서 일상적인 자동차나 트럭을 무기로 삼아 다수의 민간인 군중을 향해 고의로 돌진하는 테러 방식이다. 급진화, radicalization. 평범한 개인이 특정 정치적, 종교적 이념에 심취하여 극단적이고 폭력적인 행동을 정당화하게 되는 심리적, 사회적 과정을 뜻한다. 2. The Korea Herald, 2-1. Korea's extreme heat spreads beyond Daegu. Extreme summer heat in South Korea is no longer confined solely to Daegu, a city traditionally notorious for being the nation's hottest area. Scorching temperatures are now heavily impacting broader inland and eastern coastal areas of North Gyeongsang Province. In response to this shifting weather pattern, the Korea Meteorological Administration, KMA, has issued severe heat wave warnings for cities including Gyeongsang and Pohang. A severe warning is triggered when the apparent temperature reaches 38 degrees Celsius or higher for consecutive days. As local temperatures flirt with the 40-degree mark, authorities are strongly advising residents to halt outdoor activities and prioritize hydration to mitigate health risks. Vocabulary. Confined. Adjective. 국한된, 갇힌. The economic recession is not confined to the manufacturing sector alone. Notorious. Adjective. 악명 높은. The intersection is notorious for frequent and severe traffic accidents. Scorching. Adjective. 찌는 듯이 더운. The workers had to pave the road under the scorching midday sun. Impact. Verb. 강한 영향을 미치다. The prolonged drought is negatively impacting the region's agricultural output. Trigger, verb, 촉발하다, 작동시키다. The loud noise triggered the car's security alarm in the parking lot.
apparent, adjective, 체감에, 겉보기에. The apparent temperature is significantly higher due to the extreme humidity. Consecutive, adjective, 연속적인. The company reported a profit decline for the third consecutive quarter. Mitigate, verb, 완화하다, 경감시키다. New environmental policies aim to mitigate the harsh effects of climate change. 체감온도, apparent temperature. 온도계가 측정하는 물리적 기온이 아니라 습도나 바람의 강도 등을 종합하여 사람이 피부로 실제로 느끼는 더위나 추위의 정도를 의미한다. 폭염경보, heat wave warning. 폭염으로 인해 인명피해나 막대한 재산 피해가 예상될 때 발령되는 특보이다. 최근에는 단순 기온보다 체감온도를 주요 기준으로 삼아 경보 체계를 운영하고 있다.
2-2. Supreme Court upholds Yoon's 7-year sentence for obstructing arrest. South Korea's Supreme Court has finalized a 7-year prison sentence for former President Yoon Suk-yeol on charges of obstructing an arrest warrant. This marks the first definitive top court ruling among the myriad of criminal cases stemming from his failed attempt to impose martial law in December 2024. The court dismissed all appeals, upholding the appellate court's verdict, which found Yoon guilty of multiple offenses. These included obstructing justice and abusing executive power by infringing upon the deliberation rights of cabinet members. The ruling establishes a critical legal precedent that is expected to significantly impact the trajectory of Yoon's other ongoing trials, including the severe charge of leading an insurrection. Vocabulary. Uphold. Verb. 판결 등을 확정하다, 지지하다. The Supreme Court decided to uphold the lower court's ruling on the case. Obstruct. Verb. 방해하다, 가로막다. He was charged with attempting to obstruct the ongoing police investigation. Definitive. Adjective. 확정적인, 최종적인. The scientists provided definitive proof that the new vaccine is highly effective. Martial law. Noun. 계엄령. The president declared martial law to restore order after the violent riots. Dismiss. Verb. 기각하다, 묵살하다. The judge dismissed the lawsuit due to a complete lack of credible evidence. Infringe. Verb. 침해하다, 위반하다. The new policy strictly forbids any actions that infringe upon individual privacy. Deliberation. Noun. 심의, 숙고. After hours of careful deliberation, the jury finally reached a unanimous verdict. Insurrection. Noun. 내란, 반란. The military leaders were heavily penalized for their role in the armed insurrection. 시사용어 해설. 계엄령, martial law. 국가의 비상사태 시 일반 행정권과 사법권을 군대가 대신 행사하도록 선포하는 조치이다. 민주주의 국가에서는 헌법 질서를 중단시키는 매우 극단적인 조치로 간주된다. 집권남용, abuse of power. 공무원이 자신에게 부여된 직무상의 권한을 불법적이거나 부당하게 행사하여 타인의 권리를 침해하는 범죄를 뜻한다.
2-3. History, motivations of Democratic Party's decades-long prosecution reform drive. The ruling Democratic Party of Korea's decades-long drive to execute comprehensive prosecutorial reform is rapidly approaching its final stretch. The party recently announced plans to push forward a revision to the Criminal Procedure Act that aims to completely strip the prosecution of its investigative powers without any exceptions. Currently, prosecutors retain the authority to investigate cases if initial police investigations are deemed insufficient, but this conditional clause will be entirely removed. Lawmakers argue that this drastic legislative move is necessary to dismantle what they describe as a hotbed of politically motivated purge. The timing is significantly bolstered by the political turmoil following the conservative bloc's recent martial law scandal. Vocabulary. Comprehensive. Adjective. 포괄적인, 종합적인. The government introduced a comprehensive plan to reform the healthcare system. Prosecutorial. Adjective. 검찰에, 기소에. The attorney argued that there was a clear instance of prosecutorial misconduct. Revision. Noun. 개정, 수정안. The committee proposed a significant revision to the current corporate tax code. Strip. Verb. 박탈하다, 벗기다. The corrupt official was immediately stripped of his title and privileges. Insufficient. Adjective. 불충분한, 부족한. The evidence presented by the prosecution was deemed entirely insufficient. Conditional. Adjective.
조건부에. The financial aid was granted on a strictly conditional basis for 3 years. Dismantle. Verb. 해체하다, 분해하다. The security forces managed to successfully dismantle the organized crime syndicate. Turmoil. Noun. 혼란, 소동. The sudden resignation of the prime minister threw the country into political turmoil. 시사용어 해설. 검찰 수사권 완전 박탈. Complete removal of investigative power. 검찰이 수사와 기소를 모두 독점하던 권한을 분리하여 수사는 경찰 등 다른 기관이 전담하고 검찰은 기소, 재판에 넘기는 일만을 담당하도록 하는 사법개혁안을 지칭한다. 형사소송법, Criminal Procedure Act. 형사사건에 관하여 수사, 기소, 공판, 재판 등 형사 절차 전반을 규정하고 있는 법률이다. 검찰의 권한 범위는 이 법률의 개정을 통해 변경된다.
3.1 Van rams participants in Berlin's famous Pride Parade. A horrific incident unfolded during Berlin's LGBTQ pride celebrations when a van deliberately plowed into a large crowd of pedestrians. The brutal ramming attack resulted in the death of one individual and left more than a dozen others with severe, life-threatening injuries. German police immediately launched a massive manhunt for a suspect alleged to have deep ties to Islamist extremists. Following the attack, authorities quickly evacuated the popular Tiergarten Park area and proactively canceled remaining Pride events to ensure public safety. Despite the profound tragedy, Berlin's mayor stood firm, declaring that the city would not be intimidated and would fiercely defend its diverse community. Vocabulary. Horrific. Adjective. 끔찍한, 무시무시한. The news broadcast reported a horrific multi-car accident on the main highway. Deliberately. Adverb. 고의로, 의도적으로. The witness testified that the warehouse fire was started deliberately by an arsonist. Plow. Verb. 차량 등이 돌진하다. The runaway heavy truck plowed directly into the crowded storefront. Pedestrian. Noun. 보행자. Drivers in the city must always yield to pedestrians at marked crosswalks. Manhunt. Noun. 대대적인 인명수색. The local police launched a nationwide manhunt for the escaped armed convict. Alleged. Adjective. 추정되는. The alleged thief was caught on security cameras fleeing the immediate scene. Evacuate. Verb. 대피시키다. The entire office building was evacuated when the severe fire alarm went off. Proactively. Adverb. 선제적으로, 주도적으로. The company proactively addressed customer complaints to prevent a larger crisis. 시사 용어 해설. 차량 돌진 테러. Vehicle ramming attack. 폭발물이나 총기 대신 자동차나 트럭을 흉기로 삼아 군중을 향해 돌진하는 테러 방식이다. 사전에 적발하기 어려워 도시 치안에 큰 위협이 된다. 성소수자 프라이드. LGBTQ pride. 성소수자들의 권리 인정과 차별 반대를 주장하며 자신들의 정체성에 대한 자긍심을 드러내는 대규모 행진 퍼레이드 행사이다. 3.2 U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports remains in full effect. The United States Central Command, CENTCOM, has officially confirmed that its rigorous naval blockade against Iranian ports remains in full effect. Military reports indicate that U.S. naval forces have actively redirected numerous commercial vessels attempting to breach the strategic blockade, neutralizing those that failed to comply. This aggressive maritime posture is maintained despite a recent, fragile pause in direct airstrikes between the two heavily armed nations. White House officials stated that the blockade serves as a crucial mechanism to choke off Tehran's economic resources. The continuous enforcement underscores Washington's commitment to maintaining maximum pressure on Iran until diplomatic concessions are secured. Vocabulary. Rigorous. Adjective. 엄격한, 철저한. The new medicine must undergo a rigorous testing process before public release. Redirect. Verb. 우회시키다, 방향을 바꾸다. The traffic police had to redirect all vehicles away from the flooded bridge. Breach. Verb. 위반하다, 구멍을 뚫다. The cyber attackers managed to breach the corporation's highly secured database. Neutralize. Verb. 무력화하다, 상쇄하다. The bomb squad successfully neutralized the explosive device found in the square. Comply. Verb. 따르다, 준수하다. All restaurant employees are required to comply with the strict hygiene regulations. Posture. Noun. 태세, 자세. The defensive military posture was adopted to deter any potential foreign invasion. Mechanism, noun, 기제, 장치. The economic sanctions are a powerful mechanism to influence global policy changes. Concession, noun, 양보, 타협. The labor union won several significant concessions from the management team. 시사용어 해설, 해상봉쇄, naval blockade. 적국의 해안이나 항구를 군함으로 에워싸서 선박의 출입을 통제하는 군사행동이다. 전쟁 물자나 수출입 상품의 이동을 막아 경제적 기반을 붕괴시키는 전술이다. 최대 압박, maximum pressure. 외교적 협상 테이블에서 상대방이 항복에 가까운 양보를 하도록 경제 제재와 군사적 위협을 최고조로 끌어올리는 외교 전략을 지칭한다.
Number 3. 3 News. Wildfires in southwest France continue to spread. Over 250,000 evacuations. Catastrophic wildfires in southwest France are continuing to spread relentlessly, fueled by record-breaking heat and profound drought conditions. The massive blazes have aggressively advanced toward residential and tourist zones, prompting the emergency evacuation of over 250,000 individuals. Local firefighting units are stretched to their absolute limits as they battle flames that have already consumed tens of thousands of hectares of dry forest. In response to the escalating crisis, the French government has desperately appealed to the European Union for immediate assistance, requesting specialized water bomber aircraft. The unprecedented scale of the disaster highlights the growing, severe impact of climate change across the European continent. Vocabulary. Catastrophic, adjective. 재앙적인, 비참한. The coastal city suffered catastrophic damage during the Category 5 hurricane. Relentlessly, adverb. 가차없이, 끊임없이. The summer sun beat down relentlessly on the completely parched farmland. Profound, adjective. 심각한, 깊은. The sudden loss of his mentor had a profound effect on his career trajectory. Advance, verb. 나아가다, 전진하다. The rebel army continued to advance toward the vulnerable capital city. Consume, verb. 전소시키다, 소비하다. The raging wildfire consumed 3 entire neighborhoods in just a matter of hours. Escalate, verb. 악화되다, 고조되다. The minor argument quickly escalated into a violent and unpredictable physical brawl. Desperately, adverb. 절박하게, 필사적으로. The trapped miners desperately waited for the rescue teams to reach them. Unprecedented, adjective. 전례 없는. The pandemic caused an unprecedented disruption to global supply chains and markets. 시사용어 해설. 수분 투하 폭격기, water bomber aircraft. 헬기나 일반 항공기보다 훨씬 많은 양의 물을 싣고 날아가 산불 현장에 폭탄을 투하하듯 물을 쏟아붓는 대형 소방 비행기이다. 대규모 산불 진압의 핵심 장비이다. 4. BBC 4. 1. 13th consecutive night of US airstrikes on Iran. The United States military has relentlessly executed a 13th consecutive night of targeted airstrikes against Iranian territory. These persistent bombardments primarily focused on dismantling command centers, air defense systems, and drone storage sites located in southern Iran. The intense military campaign aims to significantly degrade Iran's military capabilities and secure the vital Strait of Hormuz from maritime threats. Pentagon officials maintain that the overwhelming use of air power is a necessary measure of self-defense to protect regional allies and global shipping lanes. In stark contrast, Tehran has vehemently condemned the prolonged airstrikes, labeling them as egregious violations of national sovereignty and international law. Vocabulary. Execute, verb. 실행하다, 수행하다. The special forces successfully executed the dangerous hostage rescue operation. Persistent, adjective. 끈질긴, 끊임없는. Her persistent dedication to the extensive research finally yielded groundbreaking results. Bombardment, noun. 폭격, 폭격. The capital city suffered heavily from the continuous artillery bombardment overnight. Dismantle, verb. 해체하다. The engineering team had to dismantle the massive machine to replace the broken part. Degrade, verb. 약화시키다, 초화시키다. Prolonged exposure to sunlight can significantly degrade the quality of the plastic material. Overwhelming, adjective.
압도적임. The incumbent mayor won the recent election with an overwhelming majority of the votes. Vehemently, adverb, 강력하게, 격렬하게. The opposition party vehemently protested against the controversial new tax law. Egregious, adjective, 지독한, 터무니없는. The detailed audit revealed an egregious error in the company's financial reporting. 시사용어 해설, 호르무즈 해협, Strait of Hormuz. 페르시아만과 아라비아해를 잇는 좁은 바닷길로 전 세계 원유 물동량의 약 20%가 이곳을 통과한다. 지정학적 요충지로서 이곳이 봉쇄되면 전 세계 유가가 폭등하는 경제적 파장이 발생한다. 주권 침해, violation of national sovereignty. 한 국가가 타국의 영토, 영공, 영해를 허락 없이 침범하거나 간섭하여 독립적인 통치 권한을 훼손하는 국제법상의 불법 행위이다.
4-2. U.S. and Iran exchange strikes and accuse each other of violating ceasefire. The fragile peace in the Middle East is unraveling as the United States and Iran actively exchange hostile military strikes. In direct retaliation for American aerial bombardments, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, launched calculated missile and drone attacks against U.S. military bases stationed in Jordan and northern Kuwait. The rapid escalation has effectively shattered the previously agreed-upon ceasefire, pushing the region closer to an all-out war. Following the violent clashes, diplomats from both nations engaged in a bitter war of words, aggressively accusing each other of initiating the unprovoked attacks. Consequently, the breakdown of diplomatic trust makes the prospect of returning to the negotiating table increasingly bleak. Vocabulary. Unravel. Verb. 풀리다. 와해되다. Without adequate funding, the community project quickly began to unravel. Hostile. Adjective. 적대적인. The foreign ambassador was met with a highly hostile reception from the furious protesters. Retaliation. Noun. 보복. 안갚음. The sudden trade tariffs were imposed in direct retaliation for intellectual property theft. Calculated. Adjective. 계산된. 의도적인. The politician made a calculated decision to publicly support the controversial reform bill. Shatter. Verb. 산산조각내다. 파괴하다. The unexpected scandal completely shattered the CEO's carefully built public reputation. Clash. мя운. 충돌. 물리적 대립. Riot police were deployed to manage the violent clash between the two opposing groups. Unprovoked. Adjective. 정당한 이유 없는. 도발받지 않은. The unprovoked attack on the peaceful neighboring state drew immediate international condemnation. Bleak. Adjective. 암울한. 절망적인. After the factory abruptly closed down, the economic outlook for the small town became bleak. 시사용어 해설. 휴전협정. Ceasefire agreement. 전쟁 중에 교전 당사국들이 무력 행위를 일시적으로 멈추기로 하는 합의이다. 종전. 전쟁이 완전히 끝남과는 다르며 정치적 타결이 이루어지지 않으면 언제든 전투가 재개될 수 있다. 전면전. All-out war. 국가가 동원할 수 있는 모든 군사력과 경제력을 쏟아부어 상대국과 싸우는 전쟁 형태이다. 제한적인 국지전과 달리 피해 규모가 상상을 초월한다.
4-3. Iran war. Oil price shock warning as Gulf states say exports may be cut off. The escalating war with Iran has triggered severe alarms regarding a potential global oil price shock. Gulf states have explicitly warned that their critical crude oil exports could be entirely cut off if regional hostilities continue to spread. The strategic Strait of Hormuz, a vital artery for international energy markets, is currently facing unprecedented disruptions due to the intensified naval blockades and aerial bombardments. Consequently, energy analysts project that any prolonged supply chain severance could send global oil prices skyrocketing to catastrophic levels. Such an economic shock threatens to plunge major economies into a deep recession, while simultaneously fueling uncontrollable worldwide inflation. Vocabulary.
explicitly. Adverb. 명확하게, 분명히. The supervisor explicitly instructed the staff not to share the highly confidential documents. Crude oil. Noun. 원유. The national economy is heavily dependent on the export of unrefined crude oil. Artery. Noun. 동맥. 주요 통로. The newly built highway serves as the main transportation artery for the entire industrial region.
Disruption. Noun. 붕괴, 중단. The sudden airline strike caused massive disruption to holiday travel plans worldwide. Severance. Noun. 단절, 절단. The unexpected diplomatic severance between the two nations shocked the international community. Skyrocket. Verb. 급등하다, 치솟다. Housing prices in the metropolitan area have skyrocketed due to the severe supply shortage. Plunge. Verb. 빠뜨리다, 급락하다. The stock market plunged dramatically after the unexpected interest rate hike was announced. Recession. Noun. 경기 침체. The government introduced a stimulus package to prevent the economy from slipping into a deep recession. 시사용어 해설. 오일 쇼크, oil price shock. 전쟁이나 정치적 위기로 인해 국제유가가 단기간에 비정상적으로 폭등하여 전 세계 경제에 엄청난 타격을 주는 현상이다. 과거 1970년대 중동전쟁 당시 2차례 발생한 바 있다. 인플레이션, inflation. 물가가 지속적으로 오르면서 화폐의 가치가 떨어지는 경제 현상이다. 기름값이 오르면 제품 생산과 운송 비용이 모두 올라 전반적인 물가 상승으로 이어진다. 5. ABC Australia 5-1. Nationwide test of Oz Alert emergency warning system. The Australian government successfully conducted a nationwide test of Oz Alert, an advanced emergency warning system designed to significantly enhance public safety. At exactly 2 p.m. on Monday, smartphones and connected devices across the continent simultaneously emitted a loud, intrusive 10-second siren accompanied by an official test message. This technological upgrade was implemented to bypass unreliable individual telecommunications networks, ensuring that critical alerts reach citizens even during severe network outages. Capable of geolocating hazards down to a remarkably precise 160-meter radius, the Oz Alert framework promises hyper-localized warnings. The system is scheduled for a full official launch in October, prioritizing real-time response to bushfires and floods. Vocabulary. Simultaneously. Adverb. 일제히. 동시에. The massive fireworks display lit up the night sky simultaneously across 3 major cities. Intrusive. Adjective. 거슬리는. 침입하는. Customers repeatedly complained about the highly intrusive pop-up advertisements on the website. Bypass. Verb. 우회하다. 피하다. The smart navigation app directed us to take a back road to bypass the heavy traffic jam. Unreliable. Adjective. 신뢰할 수 없는. Public transportation in this remote rural area is notoriously unreliable on weekends. Outage. Noun. 종점. 통신장애. The powerful thunderstorm caused a widespread power outage throughout the entire downtown district. Geolocate. Verb. 위치를 추적하다. Modern smartphones use precise GPS data to instantly geolocate nearby emergency services. Precise. Adjective. 정밀한, 정확한. The robotic surgical instrument allows doctors to make incredibly precise incisions during operations. Radius. Noun. 반경, 반지름. Residents within a 5-mile radius of the chemical plant explosion were immediately evacuated. 시사용어 해설. 초국지적, hyper-localized, 경보. 도 단위의 넓은 지역이 아닌 위험이 닥친 특정 동네나 반경 수백 미터 이내의 사람들에게만 핀셋처럼 집어내어 맞춤형 재난 문자를 보내는 기술이다. 5.2. The hate speech bill passes both houses of parliament. A controversial hate speech bill has successfully passed both houses of the Australian Parliament following intense and prolonged political debate.
The sweeping legislation is explicitly designed to severely restrict public statements that incite violence or discrimination against marginalized groups based on race, religion, or sexual orientation. However, the passage of this landmark bill sparked a profound internal crisis within the conservative coalition, leading to the dramatic resignation of several prominent frontbench lawmakers who fiercely opposed the restrictions. Proponents argue the law is a necessary step to protect vulnerable communities in a multicultural society. Meanwhile, critics warn it poses a dangerous threat to fundamental freedom of speech and political expression. Vocabulary: prolonged. Adjective: 장기적인, 기나긴. The patient required a prolonged period of rehabilitation to fully recover from the severe injury. Sweeping. Adjective: 광범위한, 전면적인. The newly elected government promised to implement sweeping reforms in the outdated education sector. Explicitly. Adverb: 명시적으로, 분명하게.
The updated contract explicitly states that no overtime work will be required on public holidays. Incite. Verb: 선동하다, 조장하다. The extremist leader was arrested for actively trying to incite a violent riot among his followers. Marginalized. Adjective: 소외된, 주류에서 밀려난. The charity focuses entirely on providing better educational opportunities for marginalized rural communities. Prominent. Adjective: 조명한, 두드러진. Several prominent scientists signed the open letter demanding urgent and immediate climate action. Proponent. Noun: 지지자, 찬성자. Proponents of the new tax policy argue that it will significantly boost domestic economic growth. Fundamental. Adjective: 근본적인, 기본적인. Freedom of the press is a fundamental pillar of any functioning and healthy democratic society. 시사 용어 해설. 보수연합, the coalition. 호주 정치에서 우파 성향을 띠는 자유당, Liberal Party, 과 국민당, National Party, 이 연합하여 만든 거대 정치 세력이다. 혐오 발언, hate speech. 인종, 성별, 종교 등을 이유로 특정 집단에 대해 의도적으로 모욕, 폄하하거나 폭력을 부추기는 발언이다. 이를 법으로 처벌할 것인가, 아니면 표현의 자유로 존중할 것인가를 두고 세계 곳곳에서 논쟁이 벌어지고 있다. 5.3. Anti-immigration rallies take place in major cities across Australia. Large-scale anti-immigration rallies have simultaneously erupted in major metropolitan centers across Australia, reflecting growing social unrest. Angry protesters loudly argue that a recent, unprecedented surge in foreign migrants is the primary driver behind the country's worsening housing crisis, stagnant wages, and soaring inflation. The demonstrators are passionately demanding that the federal government implement immediate and stringent caps on annual immigration intakes. Conversely, human rights organizations and pro-diversity groups have swiftly organized counter-protests, fiercely condemning the anti-immigration rhetoric as dangerous xenophobia. This intense polarization highlights deep underlying economic anxieties and widening societal fractures within the typically harmonious multicultural nation. Vocabulary: simultaneously. Adverb: 동시다발적으로. The coordinated terror attacks occurred simultaneously in 3 different bustling capital cities. Erupt. Verb: 발발하다, 분출하다. Heavy violence erupted on the city streets immediately after the controversial court verdict was read. Unrest. Noun: 불안, 소요. Rising food and fuel prices frequently lead to widespread social unrest in developing nations. Stagnant. Adjective: 정체된, 고인. The nation's overall economic growth has remained stagnant for the past 3 consecutive years. Stringent. Adjective: 엄격한, 가혹한. The airline implemented highly stringent security measures following the unexpected bomb threat. Cap. Noun: 성안선, 한도. The newly proposed legislation will place a strict cap on the amount of interest credit card companies can charge. Rhetoric. Noun: 수사학, 과장된 말. The political candidate's aggressive rhetoric alienated many moderate and undecided voters. Xenophobia. Noun: 외국인 혐오증. Education and cultural exchange programs are powerful tools used to combat deeply rooted xenophobia. 양극화, polarization.
사회의 의견이나 소득 수준 등이 중간지대 없이 양쪽 극단으로 완전히 갈라지는 현상이다. 정치적으로 극우와 극좌가 대립하거나 경제적으로 빈부격차가 심해지는 것을 의미한다. 맞불 집회, counter protest. 어떤 시위나 집회가 열릴 때 그들의 주장에 반대하는 사람들이 같은 장소나 인근에 모여 자신들의 반대 주장을 알리는 집회이다.
CGTN 6-1 Wildfires. Spain declares national emergency. France asks EU for help. A series of devastating wildfires, continuously fueled by searing summer heat, has forced tens of thousands of emergency evacuations across Western Europe. In a completely unprecedented move, the government of Spain officially declared a national emergency to better coordinate its crisis response as highly aggressive flames threaten densely populated mountain towns near Madrid. Concurrently, France formally petitioned the European Union for immediate firefighting assistance, specifically requesting specialized water bomber aircraft to tackle a massive, uncontrollable blaze ravaging its Atlantic coast. The soaring temperatures and unusually dry conditions are destroying massive residential properties and severely impacting vital agricultural crops and nuclear power plant cooling systems. Vocabulary. Devastating. Adjective. 파괴적인. The powerful earthquake had a devastating physical impact on the small, isolated coastal village. Searing. Adjective. 타는 듯한. The weary travelers struggled to walk through the harsh desert's searing midday heat. Unprecedented. Adjective. 전례 없는. The sudden global pandemic caused an unprecedented disruption to international supply chains. Coordinate. Verb. 조율하다. 조정하다. The new agency was created specifically to coordinate disaster relief efforts across multiple states. Densely. Adverb. 빽빽하게. 밀집하여. Hong Kong is universally known as one of the most densely populated metropolitan cities in the world. Petition. Verb. 청원하다. 공식 요청하다. The angry residents petitioned the local city council to quickly fix the hazardous potholes. Ravage. Verb. 휩쓸다. 파괴하다. The fierce hurricane aggressively ravaged the entire southern coastline, leaving ruin in its wake. Vital. Adjective. 필수적인. 생명과 직결된. Having access to clean drinking water is absolutely vital for maintaining good public health. 시사용어 해설. 국가 비상사태. National emergency. 대규모 자연재해나 테러 등 국가적 위기 상황 발생 시 평상시의 행정 절차를 생략하고 국가의 군대, 예산, 인력을 신속하게 투입할 수 있도록 정부가 발동하는 특별 법적 조치이다.
6-2 U.S. maintains naval blockade on Iran amid military pause. Even amidst a temporary, uneasy pause in direct military strikes, the United States is steadfastly maintaining its rigorous naval blockade against Iran. The U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, reported that American naval forces have actively redirected or completely disabled dozens of commercial vessels attempting to breach the strategic economic blockade near the Strait of Hormuz. Washington insists that this sustained maritime pressure is absolutely necessary to financially squeeze Tehran into making substantial diplomatic concessions. In fierce response, Iranian authorities have vehemently condemned the blockade as an illegal act of economic terrorism and have reportedly accelerated efforts to rapidly rebuild and expand their military and nuclear capabilities. Vocabulary. Steadfastly. Adverb. 확고하게, 변함없이. The loyal lawyer steadfastly maintained his client's total innocence throughout the long trial. Rigorous. Adjective. 엄격한, 가혹한. The elite athletes must undergo extremely rigorous physical training before the Olympic Games. Disable. Verb. 무력화하다, 망가뜨리다. The skilled hacker managed to remotely disable the bank's entire internal security system. Squeeze. Verb. 옥죄다, 압박하다. The newly imposed sanctions are designed to effectively squeeze the rogue nation's fragile economy. Substantial. Adjective. 상당한, 실질적인. The diligent researcher has already gathered a substantial amount of convincing evidence. Concession. Noun. 양보. The tough management finally made a significant concession regarding the workers' paid vacation days. Vehemently. Adverb. 격렬하게, 맹렬히.
The angry crowd vehemently protested against the corrupt politician's controversial statements. Accelerate. Verb. 가속화하다. The brilliant scientists are working overtime to rapidly accelerate the development of the crucial vaccine. 경제 테러. Economic terrorism. 총이나 폭탄을 사용하지 않고 경제 제재나 해상 봉쇄 등을 통해 상대 국가의 경제 기반을 완전히 무너뜨려 국민의 생존을 위협하는 행위를 비난할 때 쓰는 정치적 수사이다.
6.3. U.S.-Philippine meddling can't deny China's South China Sea rights. Chinese officials have fiercely criticized the recent coordinated actions of the United States and the Philippines, asserting that such meddling cannot undermine China's historical rights in the highly contested South China Sea. Beijing strongly argues that Manila has deliberately orchestrated maritime provocations, such as aggressive vessel rammings, to intentionally draw extraterritorial forces into the regional dispute. Furthermore, Chinese state media openly accused Washington of exercising blatant double standards, preaching international rule of law while simultaneously militarizing the peaceful Pacific waters. The report concluded with a stern warning that China will continuously safeguard its absolute territorial sovereignty against any foreign political or military interference. Vocabulary. Meddling. Noun. Concept. 참견. The foreign country strongly objected to the UN's perceived meddling in its internal political affairs. Undermine. Verb. 훼손하다. 약화시키다. The continuous negative rumors eventually began to heavily undermine the CEO's administrative authority. Orchestrate. Verb. 조직하다. 꾸미다. The master criminal carefully orchestrated the massive bank heist down to the very last detail. Provocation. Noun. 도발. The sudden border skirmish was widely seen as an intentional military provocation. Extraterritorial. Adjective. 치외 법권에. 역외. The controversial treaty grants sweeping extraterritorial rights to the foreign military bases. Blatant. Adjective. 노골적이. 뻔뻔스러운. The corrupt politician's blatant disregard for the rules ultimately led to his immediate resignation. Sovereignty. Noun. 주권. 통치권. The independent nation bravely fought a long war to firmly establish its absolute sovereignty. Interference. Noun. concept. 방해. The radio signal suffered from severe static interference caused by the ongoing heavy thunderstorm, 시사영어 해설, 영유권 분쟁, territorial dispute, 바다나 섬, 땅 등을 두고 서로 자기 나라의 소유라고 주장하며 벌이는 외교적, 군사적 다툼이다. 남중국해는 막대한 석유 자원과 중요한 무역로가 있어 중국과 동남아시아 국가들 간의 갈등이 매우 치열하다. 이중잣대, double standards. 자신이나 친한 사람에게는 관대한 기준을 적용하고 반대편에게는 엄격한 기준을 들이대는 불공평한 태도를 뜻한다. Number 7. NHK World Japan. Number 7. 1. Japan records unprecedented 5-day streak of temperatures reaching 40 degrees Celsius. Japan is currently enduring a historic, life-threatening heat wave, recording an unprecedented 5-day streak of temperatures reaching or exceeding a sweltering 40 degrees Celsius, or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Meteorological officials officially confirmed that this completely unbroken stretch of extreme heat is the longest ever recorded in the nation's modern weather history. The blistering conditions have mercilessly blanketed much of the archipelago, putting particularly vulnerable populations at severe risk of deadly heat stroke. In immediate response to the lethal weather pattern, public health authorities are strongly urging citizens to remain safely indoors. They also advise using air conditioning continuously and entirely avoiding any non-essential physical exertion outside during the scorching daytime hours. Vocabulary. Historic. Adjective. 역사적인, 유례없는. The signing of the treaty marked a truly historic moment in the long peace negotiations. Streak. Noun. 연속되는 기간, 연속. The professional baseball team is currently riding an impressive 10-game winning streak. Sweltering. Adjective. 무더운, 찌는 듯한. The soldiers marched for 20 miles through the dense, sweltering jungle environment. Unbroken. Adjective. 끊임없는, 중단되지 않은. The legendary champion holds an unbroken record of 50 consecutive victories in the boxing ring. Blistering. Adjective. 맹렬한, 지독히 더운. The exhausted runners struggled to finish the marathon in the unexpectedly blistering afternoon heat. Mercilessly. Adverb.
무자비하게, 가차없이. The fierce winter storm beat mercilessly against the fragile windows of the old wooden cabin. Vulnerable. Adjective. 취약한, 상처받기 쉬운. Elderly people are particularly vulnerable to severe respiratory infections during the harsh winter. Exertion. Noun. 육체적 노력, 탈진. The doctor strongly advised him to avoid any strenuous physical exertion immediately after his heart surgery. 시사용어 해설. 폭염, heatwave. 평년 기온을 훌쩍 뛰어넘는 심한 더위가 며칠 이상 지속되는 기상재해이다. 인간의 건강은 물론 농작물, 가축, 심지어 산업시설의 냉각 시스템에도 막대한 경제적 타격을 준다.
7-2. Day 12 of the July 2026 Grand Sumo Tournament. The highly anticipated July 2026 Grand Sumo Tournament, broadcast globally via NHK World, is reaching its thrilling climax on Day 12 in Nagoya. This year's rigorous competition has heavily featured intense generational clashes between established Yokozuna champions and rapidly rising rookie stars attempting to claim victory. Fans worldwide are closely watching the dramatic bouts, which frequently end in swift, powerful throws or strategic maneuvers at the ring's edge. Beyond mere physical sport, the tournament elegantly showcases deeply rooted traditional Japanese Shinto rituals and ceremonial discipline. The broadcast serves as a vital cultural bridge, introducing international audiences to the profound respect and strict hierarchy that define Japan's national sport. Vocabulary. Anticipated. Adjective. 고대하던, 기대하던. The highly anticipated sequel to the blockbuster movie finally hit theaters this past Friday. Climax. Noun. 절정. Climax. The intense action movie reached its thrilling climax during the spectacular final battle scene. Clash. Noun. 충돌. 맞붙음. The upcoming election will feature a fierce clash between the two radically different political ideologies. Bout. Noun. 권투. Wrestling 등의 시합. The boxing champion won the grueling bout by a stunning knockout in the very last round. Maneuver. Noun. 기술. 유책. 조작. The skilled pilot executed a highly complex maneuver to safely land the severely damaged aircraft. Ritual. Noun. 의식. 절차. Drinking tea in the early morning has become a deeply comforting daily ritual for her. Discipline. Noun. 규율. 훈련. Mastering a challenging musical instrument requires an immense amount of time and strict discipline. Hierarchy. Noun. 위계질서. 계급. The massive corporation operates under a very strict and traditional top-down management hierarchy. 시사용어 해설. 요코즈나. 요코즈나. 일본 스모 선수들이 오를 수 있는 가장 높은 계급, 천하장사이다. 실력뿐만 아니라 높은 인품과 품위를 유지해야 하며 성적이 떨어져도 강등되지 않는 대신 명예롭게 은퇴해야 하는 무거운 책임을 진다.
7-3. Typhoon number 7, classified as very strong, approaching Okinawa. Typhoon number 7, internationally categorized as a very strong storm, is slowly advancing north-northwest, directly toward Japan's southern Okinawa Islands. Meteorological agencies report that the storm possesses a dangerously low central pressure and maximum wind gusts capable of causing widespread structural devastation. Complicating the already dire situation, a subsequent typhoon number 8 has rapidly formed and is projected to closely approach the densely populated Kanto region shortly after. This rare and highly perilous double typhoon scenario has prompted authorities to issue extreme weather warnings for heavy rainfall, flooding, and potential landslides. Residents and foreign nationals are strongly urged to utilize multilingual disaster apps to monitor rapidly changing evacuation advisories. Vocabulary. Advance. Verb. 다가가다. 전진하다. The heavy storm clouds continue to advance steadily toward the vulnerable coastal town. Possess. Verb. 소유하다. 지니다. The newly elected leader possesses the rare ability to inspire hope in very difficult times. Gust. Noun. 돌풍. 갑작스러운 바람. A sudden, violent gust of wind completely blew the old roof off the abandoned wooden barn. Subsequent. Adjective. 그 다음에, 후속에. The initial minor error led to a series of much more severe subsequent systemic failures. Project. Verb. 예상하다, 투사하다. Economists project that the national inflation rate will slowly decrease over the next 6 months. Perilous. Adjective. 아주 위험한. The exhausted explorers embarked on a highly perilous journey across the unforgiving icy mountains. Landslide. Noun. 산사태. The continuous heavy rain eventually caused a massive landslide that entirely blocked the main mountain highway. Advisory. Noun. 주의보, 권고. The government quickly issued a travel advisory, advising citizens against visiting the politically unstable region. 시사 용어 해설. 중심 기압, central pressure. 태풍의 중심부 기압을 말하며 헥토파스칼, HPA 단위로 측정한다. 이 숫자가 낮을수록 주변 공기를 더 강하게 빨아들여 태풍의 위력이 세고 바람이 강하게 분다.
8. AlJazeera.com, 8-1. Israeli government nods to International Stabilization Force in Gaza. The Israeli government has officially approved the highly anticipated deployment of an International Stabilization Force, ISF, into the devastated Gaza Strip. This critical policy decision forms a foundational component of a broader, long-term geopolitical peace plan aimed at overseeing the complex administration and reconstruction of the war-torn Palestinian enclave. The ISF, which will initially be staffed by approximately 200 trained personnel from allied and designated friendly nations, is strictly mandated to operate in zones outside direct Israeli military control. However, senior Israeli officials emphatically stressed that the international force will operate in full coordination with the Israeli military apparatus. This cooperative framework is intended to firmly maintain regional security and efficiently facilitate administrative transitions following years of intense conflict. Vocabulary. Deployment. Noun. 군대, 무기에, 배치. The sudden deployment of combat troops to the tense border caused widespread international alarm. Foundational. Adjective. 기초적인, 핵심적인. Mutual trust is an absolutely essential.
Any foundational element of any successful and long-lasting marriage. Oversee. Verb. 감독하다. A dedicated external committee was legally established to carefully oversee the fair distribution of emergency funds. Enclave. Noun. 소수민족 거주지, 고립된 영토. Vatican City is a universally recognized independent sovereign enclave located entirely within Rome. Mandate. Verb. 권한을 부여하다. The new environmental agency is officially mandated to protect consumers and ensure clean water supplies. Emphatically. Adverb. 단호하게, 강력히. The accused politician emphatically denied all the serious allegations of corruption made against him. Apparatus. Noun. 조직, 기구, 장치. The country's complex intelligence apparatus completely failed to predict the sudden, coordinated terrorist attack. Transition. Noun. 전환, 과도기. The fragile country is currently undergoing a difficult political transition from a harsh dictatorship to a democracy. 시사 용어 해설. 국제안정화부대, ISF, International Stabilization Force. 전쟁이나 내전이 멈춘 직후 무법 상태가 된 지역에 파견되어 경찰 역할을 대신하며 치안을 유지하고 무너진 행정 시스템이 복구되도록 돕는 다국적 평화 유지 병력이다. Enclave, 고립 영토, 월경지. 사방이 다른 나라의 영토나 바다 등으로 둘러싸여 갇혀있는 특수한 지리적 구역이다. 가자 지구는 이스라엘의 장벽과 이집트 국경, 지중해에 둘러싸여 있어 국제뉴스에서 언클레이브로 자주 불린다. 8-2. Romania summons Russian envoy as it shoots down third intruding drone. Romania, a key NATO member state, has formally summoned the Russian ambassador following the successful interception and destruction of a third unauthorized drone within its sovereign airspace. The Romanian Ministry of Defense reported that military fighter jets effectively shot down the intruding unmanned aerial vehicle over the Black Sea early Sunday morning. This alarming incident marks the third consecutive day of airspace violations, drastically escalating regional anxieties regarding the potential spillover of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Western security analysts widely suspect that Moscow's persistent incursions are deliberate, calculated attempts to meticulously test NATO's integrated air defense capabilities and political reaction times. In response, NATO leadership has firmly reiterated its absolute commitment to aggressively defend every inch of Allied territory. Vocabulary. Summon. Verb. 소환하다. 초티하다. The angry foreign minister decided to immediately summon the ambassador to formally protest the incident. Interception. Noun. 요격. 가로채기. The military proudly announced the successful interception of the hostile incoming ballistic missile. Unauthorized. Adjective. 미승인해. 무단해. Any unauthorized access to the highly classified computer server is strictly prohibited by law. Intruding. Adjective. 침입하는, 침범하는. The sophisticated security system quickly detected the intruding animal entering the private property. Spillover. Noun. 여파, 불똥이 튀임.
8-3. U.S. and Iran hit pause on strikes for second day. The United States and Iran have mutually pressed pause on their rapidly escalating military conflict, refraining from launching direct strikes for a second consecutive day. This sudden, fragile period of calm follows 2 grueling weeks of intense nightly bombardments and violent retaliatory attacks across the Gulf region. According to intelligence reports, Washington temporarily halted its aggressive offensive due to growing concerns about severely draining the Pentagon's diminishing stockpiles of missile interceptors and vital air defense munitions. Concurrently, Iran's military publicly announced that it had ceased its retaliatory strikes. Nevertheless, despite the aerial silence, dangerous incidents continue in the strategic maritime waterways as the U.S. maintains its strict naval blockade and Iranian forces aggressively harass commercial vessels. Vocabulary. Mutually. Adverb. 상호간에. Sort of. The 2 massive corporations mutually agreed to swiftly terminate their complicated business partnership. Refrain. Verb. 삼가라. 자제하라. Passengers are politely requested to refrain from smoking during the entire duration of the flight. Grueling. Adjective. 녹초로 만드는, 엄한. The elite marathon runners completely exhausted themselves during the incredibly grueling uphill race. Retaliatory. Adjective. 보복적인. The government threatened to launch harsh retaliatory measures if the unfair economic sanctions were not lifted. Offensive. Noun. 공세. 공격. The rebel army launched a massive winter offensive to violently recapture the lost northern territory. Deplete. Drain. Verb. 고갈시키다. The ongoing severe drought will rapidly drain the city's remaining critical water reservoirs. Munition. Noun. 탄약. 군수품. The besieged military base is currently running dangerously low on basic food and heavy munitions. Harass. Verb. 괴롭히다. 침략하다. The pirate ships repeatedly attempted to harass and loot the slow-moving commercial cargo vessels. 시사용어 해설. 미사일 요격기. Missile interceptor. 적이 발사한 탄도미사일이나 드론이 아군의 주요 시설에 떨어지기 전에 공중에서 맞춰 파괴하는 첨단 방어용 미사일, 예, 페이트리엇 미사일이다. 한 발당 가격이 매우 비싸고 생산 속도가 느려 비축량이 고갈되면 방어에 치명적인 구멍이 생긴다. 9. CBC Canada. 9-1. Alberta Rocky Mountain House tornado caused extensive damage. Severe weather investigators have officially confirmed that 2 highly destructive EF2 tornadoes touched down in west-central Alberta over the weekend, bringing ferocious wind speeds reaching 190 kilometers per hour. The intense twisters ruthlessly carved a path of devastation directly through Clearwater County, demonstrating enough sheer power to sweep well-constructed outbuildings completely off their concrete foundations and tear the roofs off several residential homes. Weather survey teams on the ground estimate that over 50 individual structures sustained extensive and costly damage due to the severe weather event.
Miraculously, despite the powerful tornado striking a relatively populated residential and agricultural area, local emergency authorities have reported absolutely no injuries or tragic casualties among the residents. Vocabulary. Destructive. Adjective. 파괴적인. The Category 5 hurricane proved to be highly destructive to the small, vulnerable coastal towns. Ferocious. Adjective. 사나운, 맹렬한. The heavily armed soldiers faced a surprisingly ferocious counterattack from the desperate enemy forces. Twister. Noun. 토네이도, 회오리바람. The dark, swirling twister quickly approached the terrified farming community without any warning. Ruthlessly. Adverb. 무자비하게, 가차없이. The ruthless dictator forcefully and ruthlessly suppressed any form of political opposition in the country. Sheer. Adjective. 순전한, 크기나 무게가 엄청난. The sheer volume of incoming emails completely overwhelmed the small customer service department. Outbuilding. Noun. 본관에 딸린, 별채, 헛간. The wealthy family elegantly converted the old farm outbuilding into a cozy, modern guest house. Extensive. Adjective. 광범위한, 막대한. The scientific report provided an extensive and detailed analysis of the current global housing market. Miraculously. Adverb. 기적적으로. The lucky driver miraculously survived the horrific car crash with only a few minor scratches. 시사용어 해설. EF2. Enhanced Fujita Scale 2. 기상학에서 토네이도의 강도를 바람의 속도와 건물의 파괴 정도를 기준으로 분류하는 계량 후지타 등급이다. 0부터 5까지 있으며 EF2는 시속 179에서 218km의 강풍으로 목조 건물의 지붕이 날아가고 큰 나무가 통째로 뽑히는 상당히 강한 수준의 회오리바람을 뜻한다.
9.2. Wildfires cause devastation to communities in sea. Relentless and fast-moving wildfires are currently causing catastrophic devastation to numerous rural communities across the province of British Columbia. Fueled by unusually dry conditions and erratic high-speed winds, the aggressive infernos have rapidly consumed massive tracts of pristine forest and completely destroyed dozens of residential homes. The escalating environmental crisis has forced provincial authorities to issue widespread mandatory evacuation orders, displacing thousands of terrified residents from their hometowns. Meanwhile, the sheer number and intensity of the concurrent blazes have stretched local fire crews and emergency resources to their absolute breaking point. Officials warn that without significant rainfall, the highly volatile situation will likely worsen in the coming days. Relentless. Adjective. 끊임없는, 끈질긴. The relentless summer heat made it nearly impossible for the construction workers to stay outside. Erratic. Adjective. 변덕스러운, 불규칙한. The stock market has shown highly erratic behavior due to the unexpected geopolitical tensions. Inferno. Noun. 걷잡을 수 없는 큰 불, 화염. The small kitchen fire quickly turned into a raging inferno that engulfed the entire building. Pristine. Adjective. 자연 그대로의, 오염되지 않은. The environmental group is fighting hard to protect the pristine mountain lakes from industrial pollution. Mandatory. Adjective. 의무적인, 강제의. The government implemented a mandatory safety training program for all new factory employees. Displace. Verb. 쫓아내다, 살던 곳에서 이주시키다. The massive flood displaced thousands of unfortunate families from their traditional riverside homes. Concurrent. Adjective. 동시다발적인, 동시에 일어나는. The student found it difficult to manage 3 concurrent deadlines for her final university projects. Volatile. Adjective. 변동성이 큰, 불안정한. The political situation in the region remains highly volatile following the sudden military coup. 9-3. A sudden storm floods Edmonton streets. A fierce and sudden summer storm struck the city of Edmonton with zero warning, bringing torrential downpours that immediately flooded major downtown streets. The intense deluge overwhelmed the city's municipal drainage systems, completely submerging busy intersections and trapping numerous motorists inside their stalled vehicles. Accompanied by severe, howling wind gusts,
the violent weather event knocked down large trees and caused widespread power outages across several residential neighborhoods. The unexpected storm particularly caught thousands of unsuspecting outdoor concertgoers entirely off guard, sparking a chaotic and frantic scramble for safe shelter. Emergency response teams are currently working around the clock to clear the hazardous debris and restore essential power services. Vocabulary. Torrential. Adjective. 억수같이 쏟아지는. The torrential downpour caused the narrow mountain river to rapidly overflow its rocky banks. Downpour. Noun. 폭우, 호우. We were completely soaked to the bone after being caught in a sudden, heavy afternoon downpour. Deluge. Noun. 대홍수, 폭우. The telethon resulted in a massive deluge of generous phone calls and financial donations. Submerge. Verb. 물에 잠기게 하다. The rising tidal floodwaters threatened to submerge the entire lower deck of the docked cruise ship. Stall. Verb. 멎다, 시동이 꺼지다. The old car's engine stalled right in the middle of the busy and dangerous intersection. Unsuspecting. Adjective. 의심하지 않는, 방심한. The clever scammer easily stole money from several innocent and unsuspecting elderly tourists. Frantic. Adjective. 정신없이 서두르는, 필사적인. There was a frantic search for the missing child before the sun finally set over the dense forest. Debris. Noun. 잔해, 쓰레기. The rescue workers carefully sifted through the concrete debris, hoping to find trapped earthquake survivors. 시사용어 해설. 시립 배수 시스템. 도시 내부에 내린 비나 눈 녹은 물이 도로에 고이지 않고 하천이나 하수 처리장으로 빠져나가도록 지자체가 설치하고 관리하는 지하 하수관거와 펌프장 등의 인프라를 말한다. 기후변화로 인한 단시간의 폭우는 이 시스템의 용량을 초과하여 도심 홍수를 유발한다.
10. DD India. 10-1. Trump imposes new global tariffs, drawing protests from trading partners. The United States administration has aggressively imposed sweeping new tariffs of 10% and 12.5% on goods originating from 60 global trading partners, significantly including major economies like the EU and China. Washington justified this sudden economic maneuver by alleging that these partner nations had systematically failed to curb the importation of products manufactured through forced labor. The strict implementation of these permanent duties occurred precisely as a previous temporary 10% global tariff expired. Unsurprisingly, this bold and highly protectionist policy has sparked immediate, fierce protests from international trading partners. The controversial move severely threatens to ignite a new, damaging wave of global trade disputes and retaliatory economic measures. Vocabulary. Aggressively. Adverb. 공격적으로, 공세적으로. The tech company is aggressively marketing its new artificial intelligence software to young professionals. Originate. Verb. 비롯되다, 원산지이다. The fascinating rumor originated from an unverified anonymous post on a popular social media platform. Justify. Verb. 정당화하다, 해명하다. He foolishly tried to justify his continuous lateness by blaming the predictably heavy morning traffic. Maneuver. Noun. 조치, 술책, 기동. The central bank's strategic maneuver successfully stabilized the rapidly fluctuating national currency value. Allege. Verb. 증거 없이 혐의를 제기하다. The public prosecutors allege that the arrogant CEO deliberately embezzled millions of corporate dollars. Systematically. Adverb. 체계적으로, 조직적으로. The vast historical archive was systematically organized by specific date and relevant subject matter. Curb. Verb. 억제하다, 제한하다. The local government introduced a strict new policy aimed to firmly curb the soaring property inflation.
protectionist. Adjective. 보호무역주의에. The new protectionist trade policies immediately sparked a swift and angry backlash from neighboring allied countries. 시사용어 해설. 관세, tariffs. 자국의 산업을 보호하기 위해 외국에서 수입되는 물품에 국가가 매기는 세금이다. 관세율이 높아지면 수입품의 가격이 비싸져 소비자들이 자국 제품을 더 많이 사게 되는 효과가 있지만 무역 상대국의 거센 반발과 보복 관세를 유발하여 무역 전쟁으로 번질 수 있다. 보호무역주의, protectionism. 자유로운 국가 간 무역을 제한하고 관세나 수입 할당제 등 강력한 장벽을 세워 자국의 경제와 산업을 외부 경쟁으로부터 보호하려는 배타적인 국가정책 기조를 뜻한다.
Number 10. 2. India calls for stronger SCO action against terrorism. During a high-level meeting, India strongly called for much more robust and unified action from the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, against global terrorism. The Indian External Affairs Minister explicitly demanded a policy of zero tolerance towards terrorist activities, subtly targeting neighboring countries suspected of harboring or financially backing militant armed groups. He emphasized that cross-border terrorism remains the single most significant threat to regional peace, economic growth, and social stability. Furthermore, Indian officials used the platform to reaffirm New Delhi's steadfast commitment to fostering a truly inclusive and multipolar world order. This strategic stance highlights India's ongoing diplomatic efforts to balance its geopolitical influence among both Western powers and Asian alliances. Vocabulary. Robust. Adjective. 튼튼한, 강력한. The economy requires a much more robust financial strategy to easily survive the upcoming recession. Explicitly. Adverb. 명시적으로, 분명히. The strict teacher explicitly told the students that late assignments would not be accepted under any circumstances. Subtly. Adverb. 미묘하게, 은연중에. The clever advertisement subtly manipulated consumers into purchasing completely unnecessary luxury items. Harbor. Verb. 숨겨주다, 항구. It is a severe federal crime to knowingly harbor an escaped and dangerous fugitive in your private home. Cross-border. Adjective. 국경을 넘는. Cross-border trade and investment are absolutely essential for the sustained economic growth of both neighboring countries. Steadfast. Adjective. 확고한, 변함없는. Despite the fierce criticism, the mayor remained fully steadfast in his commitment to protecting the environment. Inclusive. Adjective. 포용적인, 포함하는. The Progressive University strives to create a diverse and highly inclusive environment for students from all backgrounds. Multipolar. Adjective. 다극화된. In a complex multipolar world, global power is distinctly shared among several major influential nations rather than just one. 시사용어 해설. 상하이 협력기구, SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. 중국과 러시아가 주도하여 중앙아시아 국가들과 함께 결성한 정치, 경제, 안보 연합체이다. 현재는 인도와 파키스탄, 이란 등도 가입하여 유라시아 대륙에서 서방의 나토, 네이토에 견줄 만한 영향력을 행사하려 하고 있다. 다극화된 세계 질서, Multipolar World Order. 과거 냉전 시대처럼 미국과 소련 양강구도, 양극체제나 미국 혼자 주도하는 일강구도, 단극체제가 아니라 미국, 중국, 러시아, 유럽연합, 인도 등 여러 강대국이 세계 권력을 나누어 가지며 균형을 이루는 국제 질서를 뜻한다. 10.3. South Korea to launch fourth next-generation Earth observation satellite aboard SpaceX rocket. South Korea is firmly set to launch its fourth next-generation medium-sized Earth observation satellite from a U.S. base on Tuesday. This ambitious space mission represents a significant step up in the nation's ongoing efforts to drastically strengthen its independent space-based observation and advanced communications capabilities. According to the newly established Korea Aerospace Administration, KASA, the sophisticated 500-kilogram satellite will boldly lift off aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from California's Vandenberg Space Force Base. Engineers have successfully completed all rigorous final technical inspections and delicate fueling procedures. The satellite is currently awaiting its scheduled launch, marking a crucial milestone in South Korea's rapidly growing and highly competitive domestic space industry. Vocabulary. Observation. Noun. 관찰, 관측. The weather satellite provides crucial daily observations of global climate patterns and severe storm formations. Capability. Noun. 능력, 역량.
The newly upgraded software system possesses the capability to efficiently process millions of data points per second. Sophisticated. Adjective. 정교한, 복잡한. The intelligence agency relies heavily on a highly sophisticated computer network to securely decode encrypted enemy messages. Liftoff. Phrasal verb. 로켓 등이 이륙하다. The massive crowd cheered enthusiastically as the space shuttle finally began to slowly lift off the launch pad. Rigorous. Adjective. 엄격한, 철저한. The new medicine must absolutely undergo a rigorous testing process before it is approved for widespread public release. Inspection. Noun. 점검, 검사. The building completely failed its routine safety inspection due to dangerously outdated electrical wiring in the basement. Delicate. Adjective. 섬세한, 민감한. Negotiating the difficult hostage release required a very delicate and highly strategic diplomatic approach by the government. Milestone. Noun. 이정표, 중대한 단계. The successful completion of the Human Genome Project was recognized as a historic milestone in modern medical science. 시사용어 해설. 지구 관측 위성, Earth Observation Satellite. 우주 궤도에서 지구의 표면, 대기, 해양 등을 사진이나 레이더로 촬영하여 환경 감시, 지도 제작, 자원 탐사, 재난 대응 등의 임무를 수행하는 인공위성이다. KASE, Korea Aerospace Administration, 우주항공처. 한국판 나사, 나사로 불리며 우주 탐사와 항공 우주 기술 개발, 그리고 민간 우주 산업 육성을 총괄하기 위해 대한민국 정부가 설립한 전담 국가 행정기관이다.